Okay, the first thing we do is we make sure that we have paper so that we don't spread the paint, and it's a lot easier to clean up and we don't have all of the paint all over the table. You will need a very small 6x9 sheet. It's basically cut in half. This is thick cold pressed paper, and it's meant for watercolors. If you use regular paper, it will wrinkle up a lot worse than what we've got. You will need Aqua Real. That's one of the watercolors that we looked at. You will need to try washable liquid watercolors. We're going to work on the prangs. Now I like these. These are my favorite because I can actually pop these pieces out and add a new set of pods to them. This is the large prangs. Now these are not all that great. I mean, the colors are not as rich as the other one, and they don't pop out. They're just one big plastic piece, and you practically have to replace the whole thing. And the tempera paint is... Hey, our sound went out, so now I'm gonna have to use this microphone. I hope it's all right. I wanted to share a little bit about this tempera paint because that's where we left off at. I bought it in powder paint because it does a lot as far as its shelf life. When you add water to it, you can add however much you need to mix, and you don't end up having it stink after a while. And then I put it in these nice little bottles that everybody throws away. So there's no sense in wasting pill bottles as well. Okay, so let's get started. You'll need to make sure that you have a soft watercolor brush. You do not want one of those wire hair brushes, and you need a cup with a small amount of water in it. You're also going to need a ruler, and you're going to make a grid. So start at the edge of your paper, hold down the ruler real well, and make your lines. Now I am using a mechanical pencil at this point so that it will stay. If you use another pencil and you end up having to erase, it usually ends up disappearing. Mechanical pencil lines don't erase very easily, so once we finish the grid, we are going to have a small space at the top, and I will create a small space on the edge. You will have 7 squares you're going to work from. Now at the top, we're going to label the different types of watercolor paint we're going to work with. I'm going to share them with you here in a minute. On the side, on the right-hand side, we're going to number the sides. Now at the top, we're going to use whatever watercolors you have available in your classroom. But here at Ketchum, we have several different kinds. We have the small prangs. I like these the best because you can take the little pods out of each one and replace them individually. So if, as you can see, the blue's about to run out, I can take it out and not have to lose the rest of it or buy another pack. Now these are the larger prangs. I'm not very crazy about them because they don't have replaceable pods. You have to throw the whole thing away. It is bigger, it has white. The white's not that crazy to mix with. And then we have the Aqua Real, which I'm not that familiar with it yet. We just got them and we've only had them a year. The one thing I do like about the Aqua Reels is the fact that it has the little divots that you can mix paint in. As you can see that some of my students have mixed paint in. We are only using the black and white, and you could use on this one even the gray. That would be fine because that's part of our grayscale. I'm not sure if you can actually change out the pods on these. I'll have to wait and find out. This next one is the watercolor. I like the Saxon watercolor better than the Crayola. They are richer.
although we don't like the black very well. I don't think very many people like the black part of them anyways. And then we have tempera. As you can tell, I am numbering these. This is how we're going to figure out our color scale on our picture. And then because I like more of a variety of the different ranges of colors, I am making my squares into rectangles. You can do that too. I had advised my Art 2 students to do, my second year of painting students to do that as well. But most of my newbies are novice and keeping a square would be fine. I'm going to start with the prangs, the small prang, and we are going to mix water with the black. And that's all we're going to use is the black. I'm going to show you how to dilute it, but I would mix at least 3 drops of water in and mix it real heavy. And you're going to put a very rich black square. In this case, I'm doing a rectangle. And I am going to fill in that entire space. Now, as you see, I am not pushing down so hard that you see the metal touch the paper, so I don't want to see that. I'm going to dip my brush into the water, and I'm going to wipe off a tiny amount of the water so it doesn't drip and make a big mess. And then I'm going to do the next square. Once I've done that, I'm going to dip again in the water and wipe off the excess water droplets and make the next rectangle. I'm going to do this all the way down to the bottom. Now this is why I like this praying product here, is because I'm able to use it more efficiently. Now if you are into watercolors, I recommend that the best type of watercolors, if your pocketbook is tight, is to get the prangs. They are very good in their coloring and they're rich in color. The big ones provide more of a variety of different colors. As you can see, it has more variety of oranges and reds and greens with which you could work with if you're not very good at mixing colors. But Prangs is probably the best to fit your pocketbook if you need to have the right kind of uh, color to use. Okay, and as you can tell, I've just added just water to the brush. I haven't dipped back into the black paint, and I've wiped off the brush, and I have made my little shapes. So now we're going to go back and we're going to use the large prang. The hard part about this is if you don't know the order of your colors, you're going to have to figure out which one is the black. Do not go and mix all the colors and start filling in your squares when we are doing grayscale. You need to make sure that you are wiping it either on paper or on cardboard or on your given palette that is actually the lid before you begin. And we're going to do the same process with this as we have done in the other one. Now this one is also dripping because I've got it extremely wet. So what I'm going to do is what we call a pull down. Go back up to the top and then I'm going to pull it down some more. I'm adding water, wiping it off, and continuing my squares. This one will get lighter, darker, and what I should have done was I should have gone by the sides and added more, pulled down more of the black, but that's okay. I did this real quick and I don't feel like making another video. I've got so many I've got to make for my classroom. Now this one has a little bit of a green tint to it. Okay, So we have pretty much run out. So we are done with this one. You can mix the white in if you like, but I really would like to see my students work with just the black and learn how to change out that color. Aquarel has a very rich black as well. And they're a little thicker if you're careful not to add too much water to them. And this one almost looks the same. Add a little water, wipe off your brush, go to the next section. And still doing the same. I'm wiping off the excess water is what I'm doing is I'm pulling it off, wiping it onto the paper. Going down to the next one. This is what also limits your ability to go all the way down to the bottom too, is when you do stuff like that. And because I did not pay attention, that black went down into that other area. Now, at this point right here, you could use the gray that is in the Aquarel as well. But for my experienced art students, I recommend that you try not to. And let's see how far you can get and do better than this. This was in a rush for this video so that my students would be able to get started. Now, as you notice, I have a watercolor palette. This is for the liquid watercolors, and you can put some in the hole. Now, I have not put any in there because there's still a little bit in there from the day before. All I'm going to do is add some water and mix it up. Now, we like watercolors, especially the yellow and bright colors, because they are very brilliant. And Saks has a great watercolor set. Okay. I apologize for having that in the way, but you knew what was happening anyways, because this is a repeat. Now we're adding water and wiping off the excess. Now this has a little bit of a blue tint. Usually my students don't like using this because they don't like the blue that is left over. This makes a great midnight night sky, but some of my students seem to be bothered by the excess blue that goes with it. Now, if you notice, I'm doing the same thing as I've done, adding water and going down. Now, my numbers need to be changed. Instead of 1 to 7, they need to be changed from 1 to 14 because I'm going to have 14 squares of color to use on my image. Okay, now we're going to be with tempera, and I have a plate that has both the white and the black on the plate. You're going to see it barely in the corner. I'm going to start with the white at the bottom because you want to make sure your brush is nice and clean before you begin. And you want to make sure you have it as white as you possibly can get. So clean off your brush real well and then add your white at the very bottom. Okay, and then you're going to clean off your brush again and add your deepest, darkest black. Cleaning it off, wiping it on a rag, and then you'll see that I'm using the lid of the black from the medicine bottle. Now the medicine bottles make a good place to put tempera paints. If you turn the lids upside down, it makes a nice little flat area for you to work off of and to pull your paint off of. And sometimes when you're just using the color just for that, then you should not have to worry about mixing. You can just pull it right off the lid and use it for what you need, and voila. Okay, we've gotten our black and our white painted. You can start with the black and work your way down, but it's usually a little more difficult because you have to add a very tiny amount of white to it. But I usually like to go upwards, so we're going to add black to the white and use a tiny bit to the tip of our brush and mix and move up. And I'm going to let you watch the rest of that, and I'll join you in a little bit. Okay, we're finishing up here, and I had to check to make sure that I didn't have the microphone too close to me so you can hear me breathing. All right, we're finishing up the last little bit of adding black to our white. And as you notice, it's getting darker. You also notice that it's also creating a matte look, and it will pick up your streaks if you are not careful. And you'll end up with um, paint variations of that color in that area. So you want to make sure you're very careful as to how you're spreading your paint. Okay, now we've gotten our black and white done, and we're going to put everything away. And we're going to look at what images we want to use while that is drying. Set that off to the side. Okay, what I've done is I've had my students take and send me images, and we um, printed them out and laminated them, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. And this is the one that I am going to do. I'm trying not to get all of the white light from the lighting in it. Okay, so a lot of my students will trace theirs, and I recommend with a tracing light. But if you can freehand it, it's better to freehand it. It looks better, looks more natural from the artist. And you want to make sure that as you're doing your colors, you're able to touch that laminated area. And if it's not the right color, you can wipe it off real easy off of the laminated sheet, then messing up on your original art piece and going, oh man, I messed up. We're going to take every single area of the animals or flowers or whatever it is that we've chosen and create a color by number type thing. And that's why we have these numbered on the side. And that's why I have to change mine from 1 to 14 instead of 1 to 7 because I have a lot more colors in here. Okay, as I'm doing this, this will also help if you pick an area or a watercolor that you really like and you want to use. I recommend that you fold or cut all of the others away. Just you don't have to cut them up into strips. Just cut that one section, move it over so it's not bothering you, and you work with just the colors you want to work with. And let that be a part of your picture. You can also take and move that uh, grid that you've made to the side so you can figure out what numbers go in here. Now, I have drawn my little dog, and I'm going to take the black and white version of him, and I'm going to figure out where all of the images need to be. It's easy to start with your deepest, darkest black and your white. So I have figured my white is number 14 and my black is number 1. And that's where I'm going to be putting all of my numbers in and having all of that ready for me. So now I know that the eyes are black, so they are going to be a number 1. And the nose is black. And all of those dark areas you start with first. And all of the white areas you start with as well. So every area that is dark, as the tones change, you need to make sure you're looking and lining up your grid to the side of your black and white image that you've got so that you're able to figure out what color goes where. And when you are done, everything should be numbered so that you can begin. Now I'm going to show you the ending of my image. I'm not going to show you how I painted it because when you're painting, you see that you have to stop and you notice your mistakes and you go back and you fix it. It's easier that way as a student who only has 45 minutes to just get set up and then they work on their pieces on their own. Please, teachers, make sure that you're only guiding them. If they make a mistake, encourage them, don't discourage them, and make sure that you say, let's try this. Let's try a little bit of this. Do not, do not, do not ever tell them, no, that's not right. They're going to see things a little different than we do. especially those of us that have been doing art for a long time. Okay, so now you're seeing all of the numbers. They're all in here so that it shows you what I've got. Okay, now I'm going to show you the image in black and white in just a few minutes. Ready to begin? Let's get started.